That's a good argument for my parents, right?
Yeah, just don't let them into flash drive.
Okay, set it back to a lot worse, you know, just make it they meet every other week and have them stay 6 hours instead of 4. You know, something.
Well, tell you what, we're just gonna start.
Yeah.
So, after we're talking about how it looks like.
Don't give away. Yeah, I'll give it away. We'll have a, someone not bring a history book, we'll use mine. We're gonna have a little,
You're not giving us the quiz, are you?
No. Well,
Oh,
maybe
that's
a
good,
little.
'cause- Dan,
I don't have
you'll be
mine.
fired. He said we took our last one.
Last one that I will check.
I actually, have a prize for this too. Alright.
I'm gonna win.
What's that?
I'm gonna win.
You're gonna win. That, I actually have a $5 gift certificate to Starbucks. So that's to buy like half a drink. Yeah. The first person, the next 30 seconds, can find me a reference to this man in the book.
Mr. Walt Disney.
Mr. Walt Disney, in the book. Ready? Go. 30 seconds.
It's towards the back.
Anywhere in the book. You go to the index, like page 861, which is great. I don't care where you find them. Yeah, 15 seconds. You all read the textbook? Yeah, 5 seconds.
Not there.
Oh. How can, oh man, your time's up, by the way. How can a man who's revolutionized our American culture be excluded from our textbook?
That's a crime in tracks.
I know, actually, when you brought it up in class about Disney wanting to build a theme park in Virginia, it started me thinking, like, you know, we haven't heard about this and that at all. Even when we talked about mass culture in the 1920s and 30s, in our last week's set of homework, Disney was left out of that. And so we're going to talk about that. I know I could spend time, I could go down the trail of Mickey Mouse and Disneyland and everything else, but I think we all know enough about that. So I want to focus on the impact Walt had on American culture. And I think that's far more important than just a mouse or the theme park. Now granted, they did a lot for our economy and who we are and our American identity, but Walt actually produced a lot more. Walt growing up, knowing about his history, it's important to know this. Walt growing up, he was the youngest of, or the second youngest of 4 children, the youngest boy in his family. His father was very frugal and very stern and religious. And so growing up, his dad refused to give him or his brothers any kind of allowance or any kind of toys to play with. Their toys was whatever they could find around them. That's how frugal his dad was. But out of that grew a mouse, a theme park, and one of the biggest corporations in the entire world. Yet sure, Mickey Mouse came out, he came on the scene, but one of Walt's greatest contributions to American society happened shortly after the Great Depression, shortly after Roosevelt took office. And this song, make sure it's going to come on. This song, I got to plug this in this helped change the outcome of the Great Depression. Oh, I broke it. I don't know what I did. The song's Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf? The cartoon, The Three Little Pigs, came on the scene on American culture right after Franklin Roosevelt became president. And as Roosevelt actually came and said, we're going to make this happen, we're going to get out of this depression, out came this cartoon, The Three Little Pigs. Now, the wolf represented Americans' perspective on the Great Depression. It's going to eat us alive. It's going to destroy us. Now, we had the 2 pigs who live in the wood house and the hay house, and they come and get destroyed. And this is an analogy to American culture that film historians would say that they really that they represented Americans who were short-sighted, who wanted the immediate gain right away. Then along came the older brother, who was more far-sighted. He was a hard worker. He built his house out of brick. And in American culture at the time, they saw that smart pig, the big brother pig, as President Roosevelt. And he was the one that was going to get us out of this Great Depression. He was the one that was going to protect us from this big bad wolf. And so through that, one historian actually said, the force of circumstance and time of a heartening call to people of a troubled country, no one will ever know to what extent it may be held responsible for pulling us out of the depression. But certainly the lyrical jeer, the big bad wolf, contributed not only to the raising of people's spirits, but to the defiance of the circumstance by a guy named Will Hayes, who's a professor at Harvard. Will Hayes attributed Walt Disney's cartoon to lifting the American spirits to get behind Roosevelt, to get out of the Great Depression. So there's this contribution to the Great Depression. We're going to lift the spirits of the American people. If you know anything about Walt Disney and who he is, he wasn't a businessman. He didn't want to go out and make money. In fact, he bankrupted himself several times over to make his dreams come true. Walt, at heart, was an entertainer. He was a people pleaser. He wanted to make people laugh. That's what he wanted to do beyond all else. And through that, you saw a time in American history that was dark, that was deep and hurt, wounded people, and he wanted to make them laugh. Through his own dreams, I hear Walt a lot of time here, a dream is a wish your heart makes, and it's all about dreaming and imagination. Real fast, one of the next contributions that Walt brought to American society, 20 years before anyone else, was in the film Fantasia. I don't know if you've ever seen Fantasia. I always sleep through it. It's the best sleeping movie in the world. When you go to bed, you can't fall asleep, watch Fantasia. In Fantasia, he partnered with the company and actually bought the rights to it. It's a thing called Fantasound. Imagine this is pre-World War II. Walt Disney helped invent surround sound. If you're a movie buff like me, I love surround sound. I don't watch things that aren't in surround sound. But he went out, him and his company and his partnerships with people went and equipped movie theaters with surround sound.
It's all hand animation.
All hand, all done by hand.
Amazing. Amazing. Yes, I have 2 copies
The Fantasia? I have it on VHS, my fault, too. I don't watch VHS very often. But more than just surround sound, Walt was a pioneer, and he wanted to go and help people. And sometimes by his own free will, and sometimes by the will that was just handed to him. After World War II started, before America got involved, he actually almost went bankrupt again with some of his movies because he lost the profits of the overseas markets. So kind of going, what do I do next? How can I make this a better situation? What can I do? Walt Disney partnered with the United States government, to help with the war effort. How can I help with the war effort? So Disney started making propaganda films like this one, Donald in Naziland. I don't know if you've ever seen this one, but it's quite disturbing to see Donald as a Nazi. In fact, his propaganda films are so popular, not only in the U.S. Here's another one. Here's another one where they actually show how demonic and evil Nazis are. Not only are they so popular here in the U.S., even the film minister and propaganda minister of Germany took notice and began making propaganda films because of Disney's influence on the American culture. Not only that, Japan caught notice, and these are some pretty disturbing images, taking the Bible and turning it into the Mein Kampf. They attacked Germany pretty hard. But in Japan, their animation studios were dying, and even through their propaganda films, Japan started making propaganda films and saved their animation studios, which now leads to the popular anime that we have today because of the animation studios. But Disney went out and he made propaganda films saying, we're going to help the war effort. In other cartoons, it has Donald Duck and other characters enlisting in different branches of the military to buy bonds, to buy different things. You know, here's a cartoon where you have the evil duck saying, hey, spend more money, you'll buy it on yourself, it's all about you. Where you have the smart investor, you'll see in a second, comes out and say, no. We need to do our effort. We need to pay our income taxes. We need to be helping the American culture. And through this, it helped the American government convey in a positive way, hey, we can't bail on this thing. We're all in this together. And so There's Donald going, hey, make your payments, make your payments. The other important thing he did in this time set, which helped spark a longevity of films and to help American society, was he started making educational films. A lot of them in the early days were correspondence with the government, saying with the Inter-American Affairs Office. And they would go and make videos like Health for Americans, or they'd go on and say, hey, children, eat your fruits and vegetables, because they realized there was a problem that kids and adults alike weren't eating properly. And so Disney went out and made all sorts of different educational films that went out to the public in theaters, but also into classrooms as well, with the classrooms that had a movie reel. So like there's our heart and our blood cells and everything else that is happening inside of us as we knew it in 1940. It's like Tomorrowland, yeah. All the cars and everything else that are kind of going around. And so it's kind of an interesting area. You know, it's even in science, you know, what a microscope, and this one talks about clean water, the importance of clean water, the importance of keeping mosquitoes out and what they can do to us. And so they went out and really attacked in America, saying we need to be a healthy nation. This kind of sounds familiar now, how we're on this big health kick. And it's kind of, a lot of it is driven by Disney. And so even the longevity in educational films, or educational TV shows like this Bill Nye the Science Guy, was Disney. Disney took over Schoolhouse Rock for a while, but they really tried to push education, even throughout cartoons in Disney history, such as Donald and Mathematica. This is about beetles and how we need to fight insects and whatnot. And so Disney went out and attacked and said, we need to be a healthy people. A healthy people is a strong nation. And so you really try to rally with the United States government to back a healthy nation. One of the other things he did was he actually went out and fought for the environment. He was an environmentalist. He goes, we need to honor and respect our environment. And one of the big movies that pushed that was Bambi. When Bambi came out, it actually sparked a nationwide debate over gun control and hunting. No, whatever side you're on, it doesn't matter, but it sparked a debate. Is it right? Is it wrong? And he took a scene like this where Bambi Mothers dies. And as a kid, I thought it was hilarious because it was a deer crying, but as an adult, I see the emotional impact of it. With movies like this, at the start of his series of the True Life Adventures, they actually Walt sent a husband and wife film to Alaska to film a bunch of seals. And eventually giving them personalities, making a story, as one historian has said that all Walt did was took a bunch of seals, scratching and stitching themselves, and made a story out of it. And it became one of the most popular movies of its time. Even to today, now we have things like National Geographic and the Nature Channel of animals just doing what they do best, living. And so Walt really affected our environment and who we are today as an environmentally conscious group of people. Fast forward a little bit. Now comes the communist scare. And Walt was accused at first as being communist himself. Then he came out and said, no, time out. I'm not communist. The people, and there was a big strike in 1941 that said, hey, the unionists are all communists, and they're trying to take over our country. And so Walt was one of the early vocalists against anti-communism in our nation, one of the earliest and biggest based people to fight against communism. Real fast, I'm going to touch on this. You guys recognize the symbol, the Mickey Mouse Club? Walt actually said, hey, children are important, their voice is important, and we need to push them in the forefront and say we need to make sure we take care of our children, we're educating them, and listening to them as well. And the Mickey Mouse Club did that. That's what one of the Mouseketeers said. Then came the invention of Disneyland. Walt Disney himself, this was his playland, but more importantly, what Walt did from that was create a new idea of urbanization. One architectural school professor in Florida said, that's Richard Nixon, by the way. He was there, one of the broadcasters. Ronald Reagan, sorry. You said Nixon earlier, I got Nixon in my head. Ronald Reagan was there, but no professor in his right mind who teaches about urbanization would let their students graduate without first taking a trip to Walt Disney World and seeing Epcot. Now, this is one of Walt's conceptual designs of Epcot, what he wanted. We think of Epcot as a big dome and everything inside of it. Walt saw it as an experimental prototype community of tomorrow. And he was a real advocate of pushing technology and pushing forward as a human race and saying, hey, we need to get behind this thing. We need a better society, a better way of living. And so he created Epcot, which is supposed to be a spoke, like a wheel, and a spoke, everything's going out. There's a center of the community and everything going out from that. And so computer renderings, monorails come in, you see everything, everything's inside, and you go out to the next set of Epcot, the next set of Epcot, the next set of Epcot, all around. So he was a proponent of technology, and one of the biggest components that Walt pushed was NASA. In his early television programs, he pushed robots, and he pushed space travel, and just, we need to get out there, we need to explore our final frontier. One NASA scientist said, without Walt, the Russians might have beat us to the moon. I know it doesn't sound much for our culture today, but that was a big deal back then. Also, technology in his park as well, Monsanto's House of the Future, where families can live in a completely plastic house, renewable house, reusable house, and it was all just plastic and cheap. The interesting about this real fast, when they try to bulldoze it, they hit it with a wrecking ball, and the wrecking ball literally bounced right off because the plastic was so thick. And so even today, they're still pushing technology in the parks with someone like Osimo. You ever seen this at Disneyland? It's Honda's robot, personal assistant. They have this, it's the only running show in the world of Honda's robot called Osimo. It costs about $1 million to build, but it's supposed to be the robot of the future to serve us and help us in the future. One quote I want to leave you with, I know I've probably already, is this, and this is taken from Meet the Robinsons. It says, around here, however, we don't look backwards for very long. We keep moving forward, opening new doors, and doing new things because we're curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. Walt's thing was he was always moving forward for the sake of our community, as a race, and our environment. So I hope that gives you a little insight of Walt's life besides a mouse in a park. So.
Okay, let's go about the council seat.
And so, Dan, you're gonna be after, you're next after him, so.
I'll go work for him.
Good job.
I have a question. I have a question. I don't remember what that's called.
Okay, I got 10 handouts, so if you would, share, please. This subject I picked, not a very smart one, considering our professor is a military historian, but I picked it because I need to share. I picked it because I wanted to learn more about it. To be honest with you, I'm a 20-year military guy, and I know squat about the Vietnam War, or Vietnam conflict issues.
Police action.
Police action. We do have 2 readings.